1. Collector's book is given. Artist statue newly created. Book is proudly displayed. Benefactor collects the artist. The benefactor arrived early in the morning, unannounced and holding only a thick leather-bound book in his hands. After being rudely woken up, the collector is at first understandably frustrated by the sudden visit. His mood and mind change when presented with a book entitled World's Encyclopedia, First Edition. The book is noted and signed by the author, raising its value significantly. This priceless book is graciously welcomed into the collector's home and added to the bookshelf nearest the library door. The benefactor made the collector agree to 3 terms and conditions before allowing ownership of the book to be overturned. The collector took no time to think about what he blindly agreed to. The benefactor left shortly after, refusing to answer any questions about the gifted book. The artist statue rose from blackened ground and stretched its arms. It wasn't until it tried to take its first steps that it became aware of its blindness. Its world was white, not black as it had been for the past decade. It had been released from its leather binding and taken off the wooden shelf only the day before. The statue wandered around a while, figuring out where it was, imagining the scenery before it. The blinding whiteness began to fade and the world started to appear. After regaining its vision, it came to realize what it sees is not what is in front of it, but from someone else's viewpoint. It paints what it sees with its eyes closed, remembering in perfect detail every past thing it's ever seen. Every so often, its vision would get blurred or go dark for some stretch of time. While unable to hear anything, that statue sees life through the eyes of others from birth to death. The first knock woke the mice that lived in the walls. 2. Officer's book is given. Courtesan statue newly created. Book is gifted. Benefactor collects courtesan. During a wedding announcement party where guests of only the highest social standing are in attendance, a World's First Encyclopedia, First Edition is presented as a gift to the groom-to-be. Graciously, he accepts with no intention of keeping it for himself, as an officer such as himself has no time for reading. His bride suggests that he give the book to his mother, who in her old age has nothing better to do than read. The party continues and guests give other gifts, including jewelry, deeds to various buildings and properties. The book, given by the benefactor, is seen as given in bad taste due to its apparent lack of value. Details about the book are few and questions are many. The benefactor changes the subject each time a question is asked, only repeating the 3 terms and conditions that come with the book. The courtesan statue arose from the white floor, unaware of its nakedness. Nothing impressed it, not the towering thunderheads or the burning lightning. The rain only furthers its displeasure of the world. The sun comes out of hiding and warms the world, giving life to the soaked ground. The first flowers catch the attention of the statue. Though still not impressed, it sits and watches the grass grow around it. The benefactor finds it covered in vines, moss, and other plant life. The benefactor offers to show the courtesan an experience that will not only impress, but inspire. The courtesan accepts the offer on condition that the benefactor speak as if they are equals and friends. The statue develops a dry sense of humor and a preference for sarcasm just to annoy the benefactor. The music swelled as the bride-to-be made her grand entrance. 3. Doctor's book is given. Officer statue newly created. Book is hidden away. Benefactor collects officer. The doctor has been offered his book on more than one occasion, and each time the answer was no. The benefactor arrives at his home, at his office, anywhere the doctor is at the same time each day. Even when threatened with death, the benefactor returns. The doctor wants nothing to do with the book after not getting any information about the World's Encyclopedia, First Edition. The doctor recognizes the author's signature and refuses to allow the book to be in his possession. After a year of continuous asking, does the doctor concede. The first and last thing he does with the book is put it as far from himself as possible. Though out of sight, the book is never far from his mind. It sits heavy on a bookshelf in a nearly forgotten part of his home. The officer statue blinked the starlight from its eyes and marveled at the night sky above. To its surprise, the night wasn't dark, even lit from 1,000,000 miles away. The universe floated overhead. The colors changed as the night faded. The sunrise was spectacular, but the officer missed the stars. The sky opened up and a vast blue blanket covered the world as far as the officer could see. The benefactor found the officer standing in the middle of the desert, staring upwards. At his feet was a bird, dead from heat, dehydration, and starvation. It had fallen from the sky above the statue. As they travel together, the benefactor attempts to teach the statue the meaning of loss and love. But the statue never learns. Not once in his life had the doctor been so tempted to contemplate murder. 4. Thief's book is given. Vagabond statue newly created. Book is stolen. As the benefactor is traveling through a trading town, the book in the sack is stolen. The guilty party takes off down the street, disappearing into the crowd. At every turn, the thief catches a glimpse of the benefactor. The goose chase goes on all over town, down into the slums and up the paved streets of the rich and powerful. At the highest part of town, the benefactor and the thief meet, properly for the first time. The thief, mutually impressed by the benefactor, agrees to listen to the terms and conditions of keeping the book. At first, the benefactor thought the book had been stolen by the wrong person. The thief at first thought the book was too simple to keep. The effort wouldn't be worth the reward. But the presence of the signature on the first page of the World's Encyclopedia, first edition, persuaded the hesitant criminal. The shadow of the vagabond statue stretched over miles of open road. It blackened the cracks of the pavement and darkened dirt roads. Shortcuts became mazes and the statues stood at their starts, copies of a single being all ready to travel into the unknown. Intimidating as their collective shadow was, the vagabonds were tiny, fragile things. They feared the dark and being alone. It was halfway through the vagabond's aimless journey that the benefactor interrupted with a map. At first welcomed with open arms, the road before the vagabonds brightened, and for the first time they knew where they were going. The benefactor left them to explore wherever their heart desired, until they had explored it all, leaving no new mysterious and exciting places for it to visit. All that was left for the vagabond to do was close its eyes, and long for the dark open road. The crime was committed silently and swiftly. The escape, not so much. 5. Artist's book is given. Councilman statue newly created. Book is traded. A canvas the size of a grown person was lounging on an easel, enjoying the freshest coat of paint. The stylist gently brushed the color onto the canvas. The model relaxed in the shade of the garden, a book in hand, eyes skimming over the pages with no haste. Pages blended together over time and an image emerged. The final product was revealed cautiously by the artist. The model patted its pockets, looking to show its appreciation. Rather than exchanging the common currency, they exchanged distractions. A few hours of painting for a few hours of reading. The benefactor, one picture richer, looked over the image. The benefactor had disbelieved in the ability to capture a moment as clearly as a mirror, but all disbelief was dispelled. The councilman was seated behind an overly large desk. It reached across the room and out of sight. All the room seats were filled and vacated in a blur of motion. Chatter, deep conversation, and arguing ebbed and flowed in a mix of sounds and noises. With every passing pile of paperwork, the statue's body began to slow, the hands in a constant sign and release cycle of white pages and black ink. Not even reading what's written, the statue passes and accepts from the seats around it, the papers collecting ink like dust. White paper piles turn black and begin to degrade. The statue continues to slow at a steady rate, the movements becoming increasingly fragmented, until the movement comes to a complete stop, and the last page falls blank to the floor next to the statue's seat. The couch was comfortable enough that the model felt no need to adjust. 6. Courtesan's book is given. Thief statue newly created. Book is kept in the dark. The benefactor collects the thief. The courtesan never wanted her guests to return, and had it not been for the want of money she received, she would never have seen another guest. Living her life in the style she liked wasn't easy. Her job called for cheap makeup and low lighting. Her bed would shake in the slightest breeze from the windows that would never stay closed. Her work was defined and separate from her home life. Her house was decorated tastefully in antiques and priceless paintings. A night's work would pay for a week in the wanted lifestyle. At work, jewels to be admired in the mirror rather than the window sat unused in the jewelry box. Keeping them company were the books that shared a similar lack of usage. The benefactor had paid to leave the book there and stayed for the conversation the book triggered. The finest thing in the room was the mind behind the rouged cheeks and under the greased hair. The thief statue stole its way through the night, taking what wouldn't be missed. The statue ran its fingers over palace walls and its gaze into vaults. Gold, silver, diamonds, precious gems of every shape and color littered the ground behind the thief. After running out of valuables, the thief sat bored on its steps. The benefactor passed by, sporting a new thing to steal: attention. The thief cut into conversation and ran from questions. The benefactor stopped asking questions and started dropping hints to the biggest heist of the statue's life. It only took a few enticing conversations to convince the thief to come along as a business partner and invest in the adventure of a lifetime. The night had passed so quickly the curtains were not prepared to block the blinding light of morning. 7. Councilman's book is given. Doctor statue newly created. Book is wrongfully given away. The book arrived subtly in a shipment of books. The crate is opened with routine precision and placed like always on the bookshelf. The list of books contained on the shelf hadn't changed over the entire lifetime of the shelf. Shipment spanned from the creation of the council to the last day of the councilman who received the books. It was on his last day that he unknowingly got a World's Encyclopedia first edition signed by the author. The valuable book played a part in its original owner's death. The new council seat warmer assumed ownership of all his predecessor's belongings, bookshelf included. The shelf itself was seen as useless and sold, while some of the more valuable books followed the new council member around. The doctor statue wiped its hands on its body, trying to relieve itself of the grass stains. The statue collected various other stains as it lived. Everyday use chipped and scratched the stone. The warmth of the sun and the cold of the snow fell on numb skin. Only the scars of life were plainly obvious to the statue. It tried everything to smooth over the chips and nicks, but the sandpaper only roughened the wounds. The benefactor offered to show the statue how to feel the sun on its skin, or never need sandpaper again. But both options were equally appealing, and the statue felt the need to make a choice by flipping a coin. The benefactor offered a coin of their own to make the decision. The statue watched the coin land on its side and spin. A single wooden crate sat on the rug in the center of the office, a monument to the consistency with which orders arrived and remained unpacked for weeks. 8. Vagabond book is given. Collector statue newly created. Book is lost. The vagabond sat against the wall, wrapped in a tattered sweater. Its knees were whipped with cold air coming through the holes. Mismatched socks and muddy shoes were pulled close to the body to keep warm. Written with a level of elegance and craftsmanship that only a master scribe could match was a sign. Donations welcome. Anything helps. The work of art sat behind a tin cup weighed down with a few coins and a cigarette. The sound of a heavy book hitting the hard ground made the vagabond jump up with fright. The benefactor pulled out its wallet and stuffed the tin can with money, and dropped a pack of cigarettes into the homeless lap. That first donation stayed in a pouch tied to the vagabond at all times. It only took a second for the bottom of the pouch to tear open as the owner boarded a first-class train car. The collector statue pushed the last book into place and stood back to admire the completed library. It felt better now that everything was in its place. It had taken so long that the first set of things he'd put into place were covered in a layer of dust, which was noticed, and then the cleaning process began. Every time he finished cleaning, a new book, painting, diagram, exhibit, or antique would be found out of place. The collection grew until there was no time between placing lost things and cleaning the found ones. People passed ignorant to the plight of the man huddled against the wind.